Screens on.
Hello, and welcome to another episode in our series of The Recipients, where we talk to the recipients of the National Awards for Disability Leadership 2023. And it's my enormous pleasure today to be speaking to Ben Clare. Ben is the recipient of the Lesley Hall Award for Lifetime Achievement. This is a major award, and it's awarded to an individual who has shown commitment to the disability rights movement and worked over time to achieve significant outcomes for disabled people. And I'll tell you a little bit about Ben. Ben has worked for over 20 years throughout Australia and the Pacific. He worked and volunteered to teach children Braille literacy and how to use computers with JAWS and NVDA. Ben advocates for and provides advice on disability inclusion and inclusive education to government bodies. And he's been doing this for decades, everybody. It's fantastic stuff. So welcome, Ben. It's just wonderful to have you along.
Oh, thank you. Now, look, it's great to be here, and it was a wonderful surprise late last year when I found out that I'd received this prestigious award. So, a very, very big thanks to you and to everyone involved in this. It was a wonderful surprise. Yes.
Well, let me just say, in 2023, the judges had a very tough time. So
I could imagine.
a well-deserved award, Ben. So tell
Thank you.
me a bit about how you got into this kind of work. What drove you to do this work, particularly in the Pacific, in our local region?
Yes, it's something I sort of fell into, and I guess, like, to cut a long story short, I really was interested in travel. I really wanted to travel overseas and work in different countries. And a lot of people had sort of said, this would never happen, and how could it possibly happen when you have a vision impairment or something like that? And then out of the blue, about 20 years ago, it was 2004, so exactly 20 years ago, I received an opportunity to travel to Papua New Guinea to work with blind students who wanted to learn how to use computers with screen reading software. So it was a wonderful opportunity, and I went there thinking it was a one-off. Went up there, worked with some wonderful students. We learned within a week how to, start up a computer and use Microsoft Word and the internet and all those things, and which just opened up the world for people with vision impairment in that part of the world. And as I said, I thought that was a one-off, but then it really, people sort of heard about what I was doing, and it started being linked to other work that I was doing. So, for example, about 6 months later, at the time I was working at the Daily Telegraph newspaper in Sydney, and it was mentioned that they'd employed a lady who was totally blind in the office in Port Moresby, in the offices of the Post Courier newspaper, which is owned by News Corp in Sydney. And they asked me, would I go up and train her, because they didn't know how to get her using the computers. So the whole thing, all the stuff that I was doing sort of grew from there. And each time I sort of went on one of these trips, I thought it was a one-off. So it started as me just sort of going to the PNG, to Papua New Guinea during my holidays, working with lots of blind and low vision people who heard about what I was doing. And then I got an opportunity to join the Australian Volunteers Program, which is an initiative funded by the Australian government through the Department of Foreign Affairs, where they send people to countries generally around the Asia Pacific, but a bit further afield sometimes as well, to work in areas and in local communities in skills exchange and what they called back then institutional strengthening. So my first role was to go to the Solomon Islands and work as a Braille teacher. That was requested by a department within the Ministry of Health there. And that was just under 2 years, that assignment. That was the very first totally blind person to be deployed on an Australian government volunteer assignment. And that really just got me into getting contacts. So the whole thing from then on has been work that I've done for various organisations like UNICEF and Christian Blind Mission, CBM, and others that work in the international development sector. Really have been going from country to country working with OPDs, so organisations of people with disability, service providers, government implementers, you name it. I've found myself in all sorts of different roles, ranging from very, very, very remote communities to government offices in capital cities. And yeah, as I said, it was something I sort of fell into, and it ended up becoming my career, I guess. And it's something that I'm still really doing to this day. All through COVID, obviously, we didn't travel, but I was still connected to communities throughout the Pacific as much as possible. And it's something that I really love doing, and something I never thought I would do as well, I guess you could say. So it's
Yeah.
great. It's great to be part of something quite special and working with very special people.
So what's happening right now? What work are you doing right now?
So at the moment, I work for an international development company called Exemplar International. It's based in Canberra, and it's owned by a large medical company. My role at the moment, I have a contract with the International Labour Organization, which is a UN agency based in Geneva, although I'm working for the Pacific office at the moment, doing some research on employment opportunities for people with disabilities in the Pacific, as well as entrepreneurship stimulation. So doing interviews with people with disabilities, the government sector, employers, all that sort of thing, on opportunities for people with disability to break into both the informal and the formal work sector. So the formal work sector is like working in an office or a shop, or for a company or for an individual. The informal employment sector is really around subsistence farming. So people who live in villages who grow, vegetables and rear animals and things like that, and then sell them in the marketplace. That also can be handicrafts as well in the So looking at those opportunities, and I'm currently doing research on that, and I will be travelling back to Tonga and Kiribati at the end of this month to interview stakeholders in that. And they're countries that I've been to before, so it'll be lovely to go back and see everyone.
Wow. Yeah, I was just thinking you must know an awful lot of disabled people right across the Pacific, hey?
I do, and it's lovely. I mean, every single day I hear from someone from the region on Messenger or whatever, and it's lovely to keep in touch with what's happening. And a lot of people in Australia and elsewhere come to me to get information, up-to-date information about what's happening in the region. A lot of organisations want to do stuff in the region now, which is a good thing, but it's good that they're going in informed, well informed, that they're not reinventing the wheel, and because there's a lot of great things happening. So yes, it is lovely. Yes.
Mm. Now you mentioned right at the beginning about, the doubters thinking that, you as a blind person wouldn't be able to travel up to PNG on your own. As some of the barriers that you've come across, some of the sort of roadblocks that you've encountered in doing your work?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think most of the barriers have been unintentional, really around ignorance and preconceived ideas that people have around disability. I think that that's really what's been probably for most people with disability now. I would hazard a guess to say that it's really around this idea of what other people think we can do as opposed to what we actually can. Not that we have to prove ourselves either. It's just really around if someone has an idea you can't do something, sometimes that can prevent you from doing that. And with me, I sort of had the approach of, well, look, I've got no expectations. I'll expect the unexpected. I know I'm going to parts of the world where disability advocacy is not what it may be in Australia. So I was expecting some barriers, and they were there, but there was also, and I'm finding this more and more now, that people are starting to really listen and understand that disability isn't necessarily a barrier to many of the things that you want to do. And I just thought to myself, well, I'm going to do this. This is something I want to do. Um, I I won't necessarily listen to the doubters. I will do my very best. If something doesn't work, then I'll try something else. And I think it's that non-combative approach too, not just sort of saying outright to someone, no, I can do this and you're wrong. If someone says, oh, no, you can't do that, I'm like, well, maybe I can't, but I'm going to give it a go. And if I can't do something, it won't be because of my disability. And I think that that's what's got me through a lot of the barriers. And a lot of it, as I said, is really attitudinal. It's this idea that people with disability are not capable of doing a lot of the things that we are doing. In the islands, in the Pacific, a lot of the it is really just around lack of knowledge. So there's a lot of parents who have children with disability, and I was always told that they really were quite hostile towards disability, but really I never ever saw that. The only issue I really came up against was the fact that there was no support services. So the parents were basically told, yep, your child has a disability, there's nothing that can be done. So they think that there's nothing that can be done. When they find out that their children can go to school, can achieve lots of things that they want to, but those parents are very, very supportive generally. And it's really nice to be able to just go and even just talk to people and say, you can do what you want. You can. And a lot of people I've come across, when I first met them, they were in very remote villages, often being looked after by their grandparents, not, never going outside. And now some of those people have been to university, they now work in full-time employment in their own countries. They've had opportunities to travel. So it's not me doing it. It's just me saying that, yes, you can. And facilitating the supports that enable that to happen. And so that's how you really get over those attitudinal barriers, I think.
Yeah, I used to come across that when I was doing disability advocacy, running an advocacy org. It was almost like once people had been given permission, off they went. It was off they went, and it was marvelous, seeing people just, really getting out there and doing their passion and fulfilling their dreams and all of those things when we're so often told, oh, you won't be able to do that, or there's no way of us affording that, or there's no way of you getting into that space, when the reality is just a bit of lateral thinking often that gets you through.
Yeah, I think that's a good point you make about permission. Sometimes it is a bit like that. I mean, people are being told no all the time. That they're so used to hearing that word that you do become timid and you worry about the consequences of taking the plunge a bit. So yeah, I think you're right. It is a bit about having that permission to take that plunge and not to worry if something doesn't work too. I mean, we're not super duper people. We're normal people, and like everyone, there are things we just can't do, and it may have nothing to do with this. But it's accepting that also. That's going, look, this what I'm doing now just isn't. And that's fine. That's not a failure at all. It's not a step back in advocacy or anything like that. It's just accepting that, this is what I feel comfortable doing, and it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And so how do you think receiving this award, the Lesley Hall Award, will change your work? What difference will it make?
Look, it gives you I mean, I never obviously do this sort of thing for awards. It's the last thing on my mind, when you set out to do these things. It's not something that I focus or concentrate on. But when it happens, and when I heard that I was receiving this, and it was a big surprise because someone actually contacted me for a radio interview when the nominations came,
Yes.
and I didn't even know I was nominated. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And I had to actually go to the Leadership Institute website to see my name there. So that was really exciting. Yeah, I had no idea. It was so exciting. And but it gives you a boost in yourself. It's a lovely surprise when you get something. And of course, obviously, being the Lesley Hall Award, it's named after a very prestigious and great advocate anyway. So you've got that to begin with. But just knowing that it is nice to know that people do appreciate what you're doing. You feel like you're on the right track, because quite often when you're doing stuff, you do wonder, you do, like we all do, you question, am I making a difference? Am I actually doing, am I moving things forward? And when you receive these lovely accolades, as I said, it's not something I ever even dream of, but when it happens, it's very, very special. And it's something that I will cherish forever. The award takes pride of place right where I'm working, because I do a lot of work from home when I'm not traveling. So it's right next to me. Probably can't see it in the video because I've got a small camera, but
No,
it
we
is.
can't see it because you've actually got waving palm trees behind you.
Yes, that's my little. I pretend that I'm, in the islands in the tropics somewhere.
You do
That's
seem
my
to
little
be in
background.
Kiribati already.
Yeah, that's right. But needless to say, yes, getting, that sort of recognition and that sort of is very, very special. And when I found out I was nominated, and it took me a while to find out who it was that nominated me, and that was a very special person, a colleague from a friend that I work with, who took the time to do the nomination. Um, Someone I work very closely with. I was really amazed and excited, and it was something that, as I said, I will cherish forever and ever and ever and ever. And of course, I congratulate all the other award winners and nominees. And I was even contacted through LinkedIn by some of them, and that was really lovely. It's like a nice little club, that we belong
Yes.
to, and I really loved that. It was lovely. People were all sort of saying congratulations to each other. So I think that's really nice.
Oh,
So I really appreciated that.
that's the disability community for you. We're a lovely mob when we get going. It's really
Yes, we
nice, and
are. We support each other, don't we? And it's great. We should. It's
mm,
good. Yeah.
it's good stuff. And you mentioned heading off to the islands again, off to Kiribati, and was it the Solomons or Samoa?
Tonga this time. Yeah,
Tonga,
Tonga
yeah,
and Kiribati.
soon.
Yep.
But what's next? What's this year holding for you, and what's beyond that?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. Look, with this sort of work, it's hard to predict because it comes in stages. So a lot of the work I do is funded by either charity organisations, by the Australian government through its foreign aid program, and it's very, very unpredictable as to where it's going. So my work, you sort of take each day as it comes. Obviously, I will conclude the research that I'm doing with the International Labour Organization. So that finishes in April. Um, Domestically, I do a lot of work in the area of disability action and inclusion plans for workplaces. So this is becoming quite common and popular now. And it sort of goes alongside reconciliation and action plans that um, people are doing. We sort of look at those and then see how we can expand that into disability. I mean, a lot of the issues are the same. Some are different because obviously we do a lot more around physical access than we do with RAPs. But you know, a lot of the policies the same, and we just build on that. And it's great. So I help a lot of companies with that. So Flight Centre is currently doing a big disability action inclusion plan. I may be doing some work with Manningham Council in Victoria. So it's just a lot of these companies sort of approach us and say, look, can you help the journey? So domestically, I'll probably do a bit of that. Hoping to do a bit more travel. I do a lot of work in Fiji at some of the special schools in Fiji. So Fiji is moving to an inclusive education model, but it still has 17 special schools where students are enrolled, some of which get support in regular schools from those places. And I often go and work at some of those, whether I'm doing Braille teaching, computer teaching, or just even in services with the staff. You know, and I just come in and do that from time to time at their invitation. So hoping to do more of that this year. Obviously, a lot of trips to Canberra, because I don't live in Canberra, even though our work is there. I live in the Port Stephens area up near Newcastle. So lots of that. So yeah, well, this year is like every other year I've had is open to ideas and suggestions. I just like saying yes to most things.
Yes, I can hear that. I can hear that. Yeah.
Yes.
Something that I always like to ask everyone that I talk to as we wind up is, who is a leader that you admire and why?
It's such a good question, and I always find it hard to answer because there are so many inspirational leaders in the disability sector and elsewhere that really, you know, push me along without wanting to leave anyone out, because there's just so many of them. I know Graham Innes has always been someone who I aspire to a lot, because not just because of his advocacy work, but just the way he, yeah, it's sort of hard to say, but like he just seems to know, to have answers to a lot of questions and that a lot of people have. You know, there's a New Zealander called Jonathan Mosen who's very big in the vision impairment community. He does podcasts and radio. He has a radio station and all sorts of stuff. And I find him very inspirational. And he sort of really is a big promoter of Braille and things like Braille, and that are very important to blind people, because while we have wonderful technology now, in some areas Braille's a little bit under threat because it's a bit expensive to use. But a lot of us sort of say, if we take Braille away, it's like taking you know, it's a symbol of blindness and us. So there are really just so many people that I aspire to and learn from, both within the organisation that I belong to. So Blind Citizens Australia has a lot of amazing people doing amazing stuff. But the disability community in general, I think, in Australia, and of course all the friends that I've met in the Pacific and in other countries when I've been at conferences and things, I just learn from people all the time, and I always make sure my mind is open to that learning experience, that I definitely don't know everything, and I always come away from meeting someone with some new thing that I want to try, or that I, you know, new, you know, so it's just keeping your mind open to that learning and that inspiration. I think that's what I like.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, then Claire, we run out of time today, but she said getting a dust in her throat. Thank you so much for making time for us, and congratulations once again on being the 2023 recipient of the Lesley Hall Award for Lifetime Achievement in the National Awards for Disability Leadership.
Thank you all so much. It's wonderful. Thank you.
You're very welcome.